dare I even say, my favorite movie. Hello, and welcome back to Cozy Knitting Corner. I'm Cece, and I like to watch cheesy, romantic, made-for-TV movies while I do my knitting. Today, I'm still working on this practically lime green lace shawl that I started last week. And the movie that I'm going to be talking about is Wedding Every Weekend, which is the movie that premiered on Hallmark Channel August 15th, I believe. Yes, it was part of their Summer Nights series. It was actually the last movie of the Summer Nights series and the last original movie until Fall Harvest 2020, which actually starts this weekend. So let's talk a little bit about Wedding Every Weekend. To give you a little synopsis of the movie, we have Brooke. Brooke is a physical therapist, which honestly is a new one for Hallmark Channel profession. I don't think I've seen one with a physical therapist, so that's nice. And her best friend Ginny is getting married, and so the two of them are at some sort of home goods store, and they're doing the registry for the wedding and shower gift, which I thought was interesting because it's the maid of honor and not the groom who's there picking out. But she said they already registered at the hardware store, so that's why she's brought her best friend instead of her future husband to register for their cutlery and whatnot. Anyway, so Brooke is over looking at the espresso machines when she runs into a fella. They exchange some witty banter and then go on their way. Well, that man was Nate. Nate is a mechanic who restores old luxury vehicles, who unfortunately goes and slips one day while at work and injures his knee and has to then go see a physical therapist. Guess who? Yes, of course, Brooke. Now, when he fell, I'm not surprised because he was wearing completely inappropriate footwear for what he does. This probably isn't the time to get into it, but I'm going to anyways. He was wearing like suede brown shoes while fixing up a car. Now, I'm not an expert in mechanics, but I did actually work within the automotive industry for many years, so I did work alongside many mechanics, and they wore work boots. You know, the kind of boots with a good thick grip on the bottom, because for oil spills and that sort of thing in the shop, not to mention, I believe they were all steel-toed as well, because there's tools falling, their stuff gets on the floor, and they're going to get dirty and messy. You don't wear dress shoes, and you certainly don't wear what appear to be suede shoes while working in a shop. So when he slipped on the oil, I was like, well, yeah, if you were wearing proper footwear, that probably wouldn't have happened, but then we wouldn't have had stories. So fortunately, he might have been doing this might be his career, but clearly he was ill-equipped to do it.
Oh. Hey, Dan? Oh. You are so jinxed.
So there's more witty banter as he goes to see Brooke about his knee, and then they part ways, and we think that's the end of that. Until the first wedding. Now, Brooke, at the time when Nate goes to see her, had a boyfriend, Colin. Yep, that's right, of course. What am I saying? Like, color me surprised. I have reviewed, how many movies now? 4, 5? And of all of them, only one has the movie started where she was single. There's always a boyfriend. Always a boyfriend at this rate. But at least she breaks up with him fairly early. So she dumps Colin. He takes it extremely well because he was very surprised. It was actually a really funny scene where he's like, they're like, yeah, we need to talk about the elephant in the room. And he's like, yeah, there's food. And she's like, we need to break up. And he's like, oh, that's a much bigger elephant than mine. So the poor guy was blindsided and yet takes it reasonably well.
Okay. We need to talk about the elephant in the room.
I was thinking the same thing. I was thinking we should break up.
Place. Wait, what did you just say?
I'm so sorry, Colin. But you and I were just, we're not right together.
Wow, okay, that is a much bigger elephant than I anticipated.
I know.
I'm sorry, I didn't realize.
Which means now Brooke is attending this first wedding by herself. So her friends are like, oh, you do want to find someone to go with, we can set you up. And she's like, no, I'm going to do this alone. This is going to be the summer of Brooke, where she's going to discover herself without being in the confines of a relationship, who she is just on her own. So she goes to the wedding alone and of course runs into Nate, who's also there alone. So they're both at the singles table and he rescues her from this guy who is trying to hit on her, doing a terrible job. And they go outside and have a conversation. And it's funny, I was thinking, because pretty much at every one of these weddings there's a guy hitting on Brooke. And I'm like, is this really realistic? Does this really happen? And then I remembered, so I haven't been in a wedding in a while, or been to a wedding in a while. But I was remembering a wedding I was in where the bride's brother was just relentlessly hitting on one of the bridesmaids. I mean, he would just not let up, and that poor girl, she was super nice because, she doesn't want to make waves at a wedding and been like, F off, leave me the hell alone. So, but she clearly did not want him talking to her. And I was about to say some guys just can't take a hint, but he knew. There's no way he couldn't have known. That's just kind of the jerk some of these guys are. It's like, yeah, she's not interested in you, dude, but he won't stop anyways. So fortunately, at least in this case, in the movie context, Nate is able to swoop in and rescue her from the endless barrage of guys hitting on her. And the two of them, they go for a walk, and she reveals her whole Summer of Brooke thing, and that she's not interested in dating anyone, just as he says, oh, I'm not interested in dating anyone either, because he had a relationship that ended very badly. So the two of them have a great time together, and then once again part ways, expecting never to see each other again. Until the second wedding, where once again, they're both there at the reception. So another cute montage of fun and of them having fun together at this wedding. And while they're dancing, they're talking about the other weddings they have to attend in the summer, and that's when they realize that they are going to all of the same weddings. And hence the whole wedding buddy system comes about. So since they're both single and don't want to have to be constantly set up or hit on at these weddings, they decide they'll just go together. They also realize too at this point that their best friend, the last wedding is their best friend. So Ginny, Brooke's best friend, and Greg is Nate's best friend. And actually throughout them hanging out, Ginny and Greg separately have both been trying to set up Nate and Brooke together, which obviously they both refused and their friends knew why, because they're Summer, Brooke, and him being burned. They're like, okay, I just think you'd make really good, you guys would get along really well. So they're like, should we tell them? And they're like, no, we don't want you to fan that fire, so.
I have to tell you something. Greg tried to set me up with you for the wedding.
He did the same thing to me.
I shut him down so hard.
So did I. Probably shouldn't tell them that we've met.
No, definitely not. They'll never let it go.
They decided to keep their little wedding buddy plan a secret. So the next wedding rolls around, and first of all, they realize they don't know what to buy, so they actually go shopping together. Really funny, come full circle, because they're back at the store where they had first met. And then they go to this third wedding, where they thought they would be at the singles table together, but they're not, so then they've been seated deliberately next to people that people are trying to set them up with, so they have to make excuses to sort of get away from these people in order to hang out with each other. And then finally, it's the lead up to the last wedding, the one that they're both in. So because they're both in it, then there's all the wedding festivities. There's the bachelor and bachelorette party. So the two of them are actually together when they get the call that the country club has had a disaster. Now the guys have been planning to go golfing, and the girls were going to have a spa day, so suddenly now that's canceled. So instead they quickly throw together a flag football game for the bachelor and bachelorette parties. So like a Jack and Jill sort of situation. Because a flag football game is completely comparable to a spa day. I know if I got that call, like, hey, the spa day's been canceled, now we're playing flag football, I'd been like, I think I'm too sick to do that. Now, I'm a good friend, I'd show up, but ooh. That is not my cup of tea. I'll tell you that right now. Flag football. Ugh, I don't even want to imagine having been in that situation. Anyways, so there is this cue moment during the flag football game where they decide to mess with Ginny and Greg. They're like, hey, let's pretend that something's happening here, to get Ginny and Greg all excited about the relationship they knew would work out.
They're watching us. Hey, you want to really mess with them?
Sure.
Next we have the rehearsal dinner, which is I guess like a cookout in Ginny and Greg's backyard, and we're coming up on the 20-minute mark, or the 20 minutes to the end of the movie mark. So this is where they manufacture some sort of conflict, and Ginny and Greg have a little bit of a tiff, and I'm like, ooh, is this going to be the conflict? Because that'll be great. But no, Brooke overhears Nate telling Greg that he's happy being single, so then she turns and walks away and doesn't hear him finish the sentence saying, but I'd love to have what you and Ginny have. It gives me hope that someday I'll find love, and that kind of thing. So she then stops talking to him basically, and like, because I mean at this point they're just friends. Like they've been hanging out with friends, and maybe something more is developing, but they're not dating or anything. But she's kind of just like gives him the cold shoulder, and he has no clue what's going on, because it's like suddenly your wedding buddy is all like, no, I'm not even going to talk to you anymore. And he's kind of like, oh, okay, weird, but sure. fast forward 4 months, Brooke learns from Greg that she misheard that conversation and only heard part of it. So she decides to run to to Nate to apologize, and at the same time that Nate has realized he has feelings for her, and the two come together, they both apologize, and then they kiss, and then they're married, and happily ever after. Like, literally, it all happened in the course of 2 minutes. So, there we go. The movie in a nutshell. Really quick synopsis this time. So let's take a little time to talk about our main characters. So we have Brooke. I loved Brooke. I loved this whole Summer of Brooke thing. I think it was great for her to take this time to work on herself. She also, at the same time, she quit her job because she was actually working with Colin. So once that relationship ended and she realized we can't do this anymore, it sort of gave her the catalyst to start her own practice. So it's something that she'd been thinking about doing, and now, since her and Colin had broken up and had to see each other at work every day, it gave her the drive to quit sooner rather than later so that she could start her own business. Only then, of course, everything in her life goes wrong and her roof starts to leak and she needs to replace her roof. Now, I can understand how that is. This past spring, I quit my job only to have my water heater go 2 weeks later. And then, of course, a global pandemic the week after that. So, I know what it's like to make all these plans and then have everything just go wrong. But it all worked out for her in the end. She was also really funny, and they didn't use a lot of those tropes that they use for the Hallmark female characters, like the control freak trope. Like, obviously you can't plan for your roof leaking, so that's a hard thing to deal with, but she handled it very well. I feel like a very normal person, very normal person would. And I enjoyed watching her character. I also really enjoyed Nate, because he was also funny, and they made this huge big deal about him wanting to use original parts when he restored cars. So the problem was that they're hard to find and it was slowing down his business, and other car restorers were using new parts, not original. And I'm like, but there's still a market for that. There's a market for cars restored with all original parts. You just have to charge more. Like, I felt like he could continue doing the business he loved and wanted to do. He just needed to charge way more. I mean, that's a very specific niche market for very specific clients, the people who actually care about having all original parts. They'll understand that they're hard to find and will be willing to pay more for it, versus people who just want an old car and don't care what's the engine's like. And he ends up doing that in the end, just replacing the engines with new engines and all that kind of stuff and new parts. But I felt like he could have stuck to his guns and just charged more. But that's just my 2 cents. Overall, I already mentioned he was funny, he was charming. The two of them together, whoa, sparks. I mean, they were so good together. That meet cute where they met at the store, the witty banter I called it. It was witty and bantering. I was legit laughing out loud, and I laughed out loud a lot in this movie. There was this one scene at a wedding with them being afraid of bears, and it was so funny. I was laughing so hard. And normally at these movies, they try to be funny, and they'll make some sort of joke, and I have my polite laugh, oh, you're trying to be funny. I acknowledge that and I appreciate it, so I'm going to make a sort of laughter noise in appreciation. Yeah, that's usually what you get out of me for a Hallmark movie, is the I see your joke. I appreciate the effort, but it wasn't really that funny. But this movie was funny. I was legit laughing a lot of the time. It was great fun. And I love these two together. They had great chemistry. Touching scenes. And they clearly, you could tell that they were having fun together as well. It was great. There was just, I guess really one small criticism was the final kiss. Because there was no real build up to the kiss. They were like, Paul's just like, oh my gosh, yeah. No, I misheard. I'm sorry. I didn't understand. And then they're kissing. And I was like, what? Wait, where's the looking into each other's eyes? Where's the slow moving? There was no lead up. It was just bam, kissing. I actually had that in my notes. Bam, kissing. Because I had looked down and looked up and they were lip locked. And I'm like, what? Oh, okay. All right. We just went right in for it. That's fine. I like a little more of a lead into it. Like when they were at the flag football game, they were like, hey, let's mess with our friends. So he like tucked a strand of hair behind her ear and they gazed into each other's eyes. And it's clear in that moment that they're not messing with their friends. They're just lying to themselves that clearly there's something there. They want to kiss in that moment. And so yeah, you get that intensity that you want to kiss, and then there was no kiss. I'm like, I was looking for that same intense eye contact right before this last kiss, which I didn't get, but that's okay.
I think they bought it.
It's pretty convincing.
Yeah.
Kind of even felt real.
Small thing. Oh, and the other thing too is the stupid fight, the stupid misheard conversation. Like they always have to invent this conflict, regardless of how stupid it is. I mean, because at that point they were only friends. So she's all like, he wants to stay single, and he like legitimately said earlier on, just like she said, Summer or Brooke, he said, I'm not looking for a relationship right now. And then she got so hurt about it that she like stops talking to him. I'm like, I don't understand. I feel like that was completely unnecessary because the truth is they were starting to develop feelings for each other, but they had just told each other that they didn't want to be friends, that they just wanted to be friends. So I think that is enough conflict as it is. They could spend the last 20 minutes of them trying to figure out, hey, I have feelings for this person. How do I communicate that? How can we take this from just friends to something more, knowing that the other had expressed they weren't interested in anything more than friendship, but now I'm starting to think they do want something more. I mean, that whole dynamic, that's conflict. That I wanted to see. I wanted to see them negotiate this friendship piece into a more than friendship piece. And I would have loved to have seen that, but instead they had to make up this whole misheard conversation and that kind of thing. And I'm just like, no, that was unnecessary. I would have liked to have just seen them try to figure out how do we turn this from a friendship into something more without hurting the other, or do they feel the same way and all that kind of stuff. Then we've got our secondary characters. So of course there's Ginny and Greg, who are there throughout the movie. Ginny's the one who suggested the Summer of Brooke, so I loved that. I love that idea. And I love her for it, for suggesting it. I mean, it was interesting because they had their own little conflict, near the end of the movie that they were able to work through, which was nice to see. But otherwise, pretty much their whole purpose of this movie was to constantly push Nate and Brooke together, which is really kind of annoying. Like, I mean, they're best friends. They both know where these two are in their lives. So why are they pushing so hard for them to get together? I mean, clearly they were right. But I feel like because they are their best friends, they would have done it a little bit more subtly. And like I know these two, neither one of them feel like they're ready, but I think they are. So let's find some subtle ways to sort of push them together versus openly, outright suggesting the setup. I think that would have been a little more realistic. But I mean, otherwise, it's just a made-for-TV movie. Can't have too higher standards. And I'm sure some best friends are like that. They completely stomp around, like bull in a china shop with their friends' feelings and have no idea that it's inappropriate to do so. The other secondary characters that I liked a lot were Brooke's parents. So she actually would have brunch with them every weekend. So that was super cute. And they were adorable and so supportive of her. When she announced that she had broken it off with Colin, I fully expected the mom to be like, "Oh, honey, you're not getting any younger. He was a doctor. What are you thinking? He's a good guy." But instead she's just like, "If he's not right for you, don't settle." And I'm like, "Way to go, Mom." She's like, "Yeah, I'm all for the summer of Brooke. Learn who you are, discover yourself, do it." I was like, whoa. Did not expect that from the mother character. Usually mothers are the first to try to throw you at men that are inappropriate, because they are desperate to see you married and with children. So to see this mother not doing that, that was very refreshing. And then later, when Brooke announces that she's quit and she's looking to start her own business, her parents are adorable because they're like, "Oh, let's go to brunch out at a restaurant." And then they're passing by this storefront that's for rent, and they're like, "Oh, look, how convenient. This storefront in this great part of town that would be ideal for a physical therapist practice is right here. And it's available for this much a month." That's just like, "Yeah, guys, thanks. Real subtle." And they're like, "What? We don't know what you're talking about. But since you brought it up, we would love to invest in your business." And I'm like, oh my gosh, they're so sweet and so encouraging. And they're like, "Yeah, no, we totally believe you're going to do great things. So much so that we're willing to give you money for it." And I'm like, bless them. They were so good to her, good parents. So that was great. I love that relationship, to see that relationship. I talk about like I have a really bad relationship with my parents. I do not. I have very similar parents. So, however, I don't have brunch with them every week. I should. Maybe I should make that a goal. Brunch with my parents every week. That would be nice. I will. Maybe not every week, but at least more frequently than I do. Because they're much like these parents. Very supportive in that way. And then I do have some additional pieces things I noted when I was watching the movie. I actually don't have a lot this time. Usually I have a whole long list and I have to just pick the good ones. But this week I was just, I had to fish. I had to dig in just to find two, man. The first one is the fact that one of the wedding couples are, in fact, two women, which was great. I mean, we started the summer with that whole sneaky gay romance plot in that one movie that I was so excited. And then in this one, open gay couple getting married. So that was beautiful to see. And then I usually make some comment about clothes. I really liked, and there was a lot of wedding dresses in this movie. None of them stood out to me as anything spectacular. But I wasn't paying attention, honestly, about what the wedding dresses are. Unless something's really shockingly unique, I don't pay much attention to wedding dresses. I did love Brooke's dress for the third wedding, the floral one. That was really pretty, super cute, loved it. But the one thing I did want to note was for Greg and Ginny's wedding, the groomsmen's tuxedos or suits. Were they tuxedos or suits? I don't remember. I think they were just suits. Were a deep, dark purple, like a dark eggplant. So much so that in certain lights they looked black, but in others it was clearly a purple. Oh my gosh, so gorgeous. I loved it. I was just like, I believe my note said, purple? Yes! Because it was, oh, so pretty. I loved it. Now I just want to see rich purple suits everywhere. It's like the purple version of that midnight blue that was really trendy a few years ago on red carpets. So I just, oh god, it's so gorgeous. Loved it so much.
Hey, look at you two, finally hitting the big leagues, huh?
Yeah.
Well, when you two finally make it official, call me.
And so finally we come to my final thoughts on this movie. So this was a pretty quick review. Normally I have a lot more to say, because normally I have a lot more to criticize. I didn't have a lot to criticize with this movie because I loved it. I loved it so much. This was one of the best movies I've seen in a long, long time on Hallmark Channel. In fact, dare I even say, my favorite movie? That's how good this one was. So if you're flipping channels or if you're looking for a Hallmark movie to watch, I highly, highly recommend this one because it was such a joy. It's funny, the romance was believable, and just a great, great story. And I really thoroughly enjoyed it. And with that, thanks so much for joining me in my Cozy Knitting Corner. I'll be back next week with the first movie of the Fall Harvest 2020 series from Hallmark Channel, and I will be working on my knitting, probably this exact same thing, because let's be honest, that's going to take me a while to finish. And I hope you have a great week. Bye. Where she sort of reveals where she